Right, everyone, please note that the meeting's being recorded. Madam Program Director, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I've already been introduced. My name is Mkhadi Rebecca. You all know me by now. Greetings to the LIASA President, the President-elect, Representative Council, the Executive Committee, the past LIASA Presidents, our sponsors and stakeholders, LIASA members, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. First and foremost, before we could start with the meeting today, I would love to bring to the attention of all participants to our Zoom etiquette and some basic housekeeping rules that please don't forget to mute at all times except when you're talking. And that includes us switching off all our videos as long as you are not talking as well. And I will prefer only the speakers to switch off on their videos, and the rest of us, we can just switch off. And please raise your hand when you would want to participate so that we can have a smooth running meeting. If I may quickly outline our program, we will have the opening. The second point will be purpose of the Indaba. The third point will be welcome and introduction. The fourth point will be insights. The fifth point will be some discussions that we'll have around the topic. And the sixth point will be the summary and the way forward. And then we will conclude the meeting. As we start this in LIASA Indaba, let's observe a moment of silence for all our LIASA members who have passed on, those in the LIS profession, and all those who have lost their loved ones. Shall we take a moment to observe in remembrance of all those LIASA members in our sector, please? Thank you so much, and may the souls of all the departed rest in peace. Thank you. I will proceed with the purpose of the Indaba. Omukwe and Iteng 2006 viewed change as a constant and critical variable in all human endeavors and experiences. We, as people, live in a fast-changing world, especially in regard to the technological innovations and developments. Everything is changing so fast. And so LIASA needs to restructure to a 21st century body that leads the LIS in South Africa. And the purpose of the Indaba is therefore to collaboratively find a solution to the restructure challenges in LIASA. So I'll welcome everybody to say, so feel free to participate. We welcome your meaningful contributions for the betterment of the association, of our professional body, and of our entire sector. Without further ado, I would like to call upon our president, the LIASA president, Ms. Nikki Krauster, to welcome and introduce the matter of the day. Thank you, and over to you, Nikki.
Thank you, Rebecca. As always, eloquent and well in command of the situation. It sets the tone for the day. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the LIASA Restructuring Indaba. This follows the 2018 Indaba, at which information was gathered in order to make a representation at AGM, which took us to a particular point. COVID-19 has influenced all of us and affected each human being on this planet in one way or another. And one of the most impactful situations for us was the continuation of the 2018 to 2020 term into 2021. And the main reason for that was we did not get an opportunity when COVID struck and we went into national lockdown level 5 in our country to be able to consult broadly. It's taken quite a time for people to find their feet, and in some instances, and in some areas of our profession, and in some areas of our country, we have not been able to engage with persons because they don't have the necessary infrastructure to engage online. It is something that has been weighing heavily on me during my time as president, along with the constant worry that I cannot hand over to the incoming president, Nazim Hadi. Nothing. There has to be some result, something to propel us forward. We are at this time now where we're going to have as many people online as is humanly possible at this stage. Each of you, your presence here is valued. We are aware of the amounts of pressures on each of us, especially in terms of online engagement. And there are back-to-back meetings that stretch for days on end. In other instances, there's a lot of pressure on the staff to get libraries open and to be physically present, despite the fears of COVID infection and transmission. And so, again, I say having you here is special to us. And I also believe that by the end of this meeting, we would be able to have a coherent, comprehensive, and unanimous way forward so that we can at least see something happening. As you all know, this year, the UCT Jagger reading room went down to the ground. And a lot of work and responses were made in that regard. So many lessons were learned from that event. One of them is that it is important to plan, but it gets to a point where one needs to stop planning and to start doing. And LIASA has been in a planning holding pattern since 2016 in relation to restructure. And I would say one of the reasons is because we have not been sufficiently bold to make the changes that are needed to be done. I have spoken now about my concerns around lack of consultation. But if we aggregate the conversations from 2016, October 2016 to present day, as many people have had an opportunity to make input. And if they haven't by this stage, while their input is still welcome, we can't wait anymore, colleagues. The writing's on the wall. The writing is on the wall in terms of engagement with LIASA, in terms of the pressure on the few people like yourselves who engage in LIASA, who make the effort to turn up. Shouldn't we be rewarding and moving forward with the people who have turned up, rather than us waiting to speak to each and every person? And the persons who do not want to come along with us, they will have an opportunity at every stage to rejoin us or to join us, because LIASA's values and principles are about inclusivity. Colleagues, when we talk about inclusivity, we don't mean that we all have to be at the starting point in order for us all to start. Those who have turned up can start. Everyone else can join us as we go along. The same with the naysayers. They have an opportunity to join us as we go along. Alternatively, they have the option not to join us. But today is about positivity. Today is about reaching into your talents, intellectual and experience and expertise in order for us to get to this point where I can live with a good conscience, as I intend to do in just under 6 weeks' time. And Nazim can take the baton forward in terms of implementation, exactly how it was planned. To achieve this, colleagues, I need your help, please. Let's walk this road together. Undoubtedly, we know what LIASA's flag means. We know what it is that LIASA stands for, what it is we want to achieve. So let us be the foot soldiers in that regard today. I'm going to share with you some thoughts, some of which you have seen before, but I think it's important for us to set the scene, and then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty. Of course, as you all know, when one tries to share a screen, no matter how adept you are, that those particular intentions are not always manifest. So let me just see if I share my screen. Okay, please tell me if you're seeing the LIASA Restructuring Indaba PowerPoint presentation.
Yes. We are seeing it, Madam
Super.
President.
Thank you very much, everyone. So, as I said, you will have seen some of these slides before, but they are crucial. To me, it represents the heart of LIASA. So I want to re-emphasize that LIASA is founded on the principles of democracy and inclusion. However, when we speak about democracy and inclusion, it means we listen to everyone's voice and we take everyone's needs into account, but we can't wait for everyone to be at the same point in order for us to move forward. I believe that is one of LIASA's shortcomings, that we mean so well. Sometimes it is said, good intentions pave the road to less completion. And our purpose is always to unite and cover the entire LIS sector in this country. When people talk about LIASA and LIASA not having worth or value, they forget that legally, as legislated, SAQA has awarded LIASA the status of professional body for the LIS sector in this country. And it has struck me, colleagues, as I've spoken to the branches and interest groups in the past year, that we do not value that label as much as we ought to. We should have been dancing in the street and bragging about it, the same way the Americans do when they put MLIS in their signatures. How many of us do that in terms of the professionalization in our country? And in this regard, we do need to step up. And this is why restructure is important. It's not only about the physical restructuring, but it's about the mental restructuring of our thought processes, our value of LIASA, and our pride in our library association and professional body. Our core values. We can't be faulted for wanting to do things right. We adhere to these values: highest ethical practice, professional conduct, respect, diversity, excellence, commitment, as well as acknowledging the value of the culture of reading and lifelong learning. I still say we take too long about it in LIASA. So, as you've been informed and in the invitation to you, in 2016, a motion was tabled at LIASA AGM. It was subsequently approved. And that motion indicated that LIASA needs to move into the 21st century. We need to start talking about what it means to be a professional body. We need to talk about professionalism and standards. We also need to talk about regulation, because SAQA expects us to protect the public and to protect the profession. And in that regard, LIASA does have a code of behavior and also a disciplinary code, which can be effected as needed. The Achilles heel for LIASA remains the voluntary status and the volunteerism. What is the difference between the two? I voluntarily pay my LIASA fees. I voluntarily belong to this professional body. And I volunteer my time. Each of us has a day job. LIASA is at least our second job. And there certainly are tensions caused by the state. And this is what the motion in 2016 wanted to change for the betterment of LIASA, so we could live up to our core values and our principles. So again, just a reminder, colleagues, for those of you who have walked this journey with us, but for those of you who have joined us in recent times, just a reminder. So what you see with the inverted triangle is the current LIASA structure as outlined in the current constitution, which was amended last in 2018. Membership remains the highest decision-making body in LIASA. And from the membership, governance is effected through a representative council, which makes up, according to the constitution, comprises of the chairs and chair-elects of each branch, the convener of each interest group, as well as the editors of the two LIASA publications, Sagelis, as well as the LIT magazine, and probably one or two other people whom I've forgotten right now. From the representative council, according to the constitution and through elections, an executive committee is elected. And between the executive committee, which is part of the representative council, but which has elected office bearer portfolios, sees to the day-to-day running as well as the strategic intent of LIASA. And there's an administrative load taken care of by the LIASA National Office. At present, we have 3 members of staff. Those are the only 3 paid persons in the whole of LIASA and in the whole of LIASA's history. So the circle to your right, or to my right, on the screen, well, facing to the right, is that the circle then, and this is what was approved at AGM in 2019, that the governance structure in part of LIASA will be reformed, that the membership will remain the stakeholders, and that won't change, the highest decision-making body in LIASA. That the representative council of about 40 people, which makes it really difficult to make decisions at time, will transition into a board of between 11 and 13 people. And it will be less representative than it will be expertise-based, retaining the values of LIASA at all times, of course. And then the functions in the elected portfolios in the executive committee, as well as the administrative functions of the LNO, the LIASA National Office, will be translated into a secretariat. So what does the secretariat mean? There'll be the head of the secretariat called executive director. An executive director is an acknowledged title in an NPO. Don't get yourselves in a knot about titles, colleagues, please. Let us speak to the content. The executive director could also be the president, because in the beginning, LIASA has limited fees to effect this model. But you will see within the secretariat, the functions of administration previously done, taken care of by LNO, are in there. Advocacy. Lobbying and advocacy currently lies in the ambit of oversight of MAIG, the Marketing and Advocacy Interest Group. Right? Finance, we have a national treasurer right now. HR, we don't have HR specifically. An ad hoc HR committee is created per term to attend to HR matters during that term, and it changes, of course, from time to time. ICT is an ongoing portfolio from the additional members brought into EXCO. Training and development, since LIASA has become a professional body, training and development has been managed in the LNO, and we're looking at formalizing that into a specific function. Marketing, same as lobbying and advocacy. We do not have a publishing arm in LIASA. It's one of our shortcomings, one that we seek to remedy. Research, we have RETIC. We'd like to formalize that function. And then we have the purple mark bullet of coordinators. And the intention there always has been, colleagues, that the coordinators will take care of ensuring the functions that are managed by the interest groups at present, as well as effecting events currently undertaken by branches. Now, in 2019, I had presented this model because the previous screen, this one, speaks to the administrative aspect of governance. What about branches and interest groups? And at the time, AGM approved in principle the repurposing and restructuring of branches and interest groups into sectoral, vocational, and collaborative partnerships with all stakeholders, not just LIASA members. So the interrelationships that are happening right now on the ground are formalized within LIASA. What do I mean by that? How many academic libraries engage with booksellers and other service providers? Why do we not formalize that? And why do we not share the expertise gained? So, on a horizontal level, all academic libraries in this country can collaborate. And we have a body there. We have CHALSA, which is the Committee of Higher Education Library Executives of South Africa. Public libraries. Do public libraries speak to each other across the country, or do we stay within our municipalities? And what are the challenges there? I can go on and on about this, but in essence, colleagues, this model was designed to foreground every possible relationship where people can learn from each other and where people can share not only their expertise, but share their burdens as well. The challenge is, I've discovered, is that this model is poorly understood and in some cases just rejected out of hand without any conversations taking place. Because we're in the COVID era where we've moved to largely online engagement, and this is likely to be the scenario for at least the next 6 months, I'm making the bold and courageous statement right now that I do not believe LIASA is ready for this model, if we ever will be, in terms of our mindsets, in terms of our infrastructure, and in terms of what is going on in our country, and in terms of what is going on in the world. We need to find another solution. Now, AGM 2019 had approved this model in principle with a proviso that a proof of concept is presented in June 2020. The plan was always to have an Indaba in the first quarter of 2020. As you all know, there's a representative council meeting traditionally takes place in February of a year. And the plan was that that representative council meeting would be shifted up to March and we would have an Indaba and so that we could do the full consultation and we'd have 3 months then March, April, May, June in order to put in place the proof of concept and have the data to present to AGM. However, man proposes, God disposes. And 2020, March 2020, was delineated in history, will be in history, delineated in history as the month in which in South Africa lockdown started. And frankly, we haven't come out of lockdown 18 months later. So 20 and 21 have been dominated by COVID-19. And LIASA was very strong and remains strong that we exercise kindness and compassion at all times. But we note from studies that globally and in our country, we all have a less positive demeanor. Last year and this year has been characterized by loss. Several people in LIASA have lost loved ones, colleagues, people that we care about. And it is not always easy to bounce back from these, and we recognize this. I have several examples of colleagues who are not themselves since their losses. And this in itself has impacted on LIASA work. We continue to recognize that no matter what, people are doing their best. They are trying their best under these circumstances. And the whole consequence of the lockdown resulted in the 2018 to 2020 term being revised to end in 2021. It has not been easy on the executive and representative council members of the 2018-2020 term, and along the way, people have stepped off the bus. It has left a burden on the rest, and LIASA, as I said somewhere, is broken, but our spirit is intact. This is not a moan or a feast or a pity party. It's a merely explanation or stating of what the situation is. We still retain the positivity that we are moving forward. One of the greatest impacts I reported at the special general meeting in December 2020 is what I call the membership dilemma. Now, there's a lot of discussion about what an appropriate number would be for Library Association membership. And when I was still president-elect, I went into a meeting of a group of people who constantly attack LIASA. And that person who holds a very important position in our sector right now said to me, you only have 1,300 members. There are 14,000 LIS professionals in this country, and I will rally those people against LIASA. Conversely, in conversations with other groups of people, I've been told that the number of LIASA members, which borders around 2,000, and in 2019, the first year of my term, we had the highest number of LIASA members since 2015, despite other years being election years. That person had said to me that this number, if one does research globally, that this is, LIASA is pretty much on par with other library associations in the world. That doesn't mean that LIASA stops caring for the sector as required by us, required by SAQA, that we do. We protect the profession. But going back to the membership dilemma, in 2020 and in 2021, we can see the impact of COVID 2019, and our membership dropped. The target I gave the membership person, the membership portfolio holder for 2020 was 2,220. In fact, in 2019, their target was 2019, and we didn't get there. But 1797 was still the highest at the time, as I said, in the past 5 years. So colleagues, in 2020, my dilemma was, and I consulted with the experts in our profession, the people who have been a really long time from before LIASA was formed. What do we do about this? Because I have a task to do as mandated by AGM 2019 to provide a proof of concept. And at that time, we only had 975 members. And my question to myself and to others was, can the future of LIASA be determined by 900 people in a profession of arguably 15,000 people? At that time, the answer was no. But 18 months later, with the impact of COVID, with people not wanting to belong to LIASA despite marketing efforts, and on 30 June, we have 1,000, just over 1,000 people. That question is now turned on its head. We're moving forward with the people that we have. And as I said at the start of this presentation, those who want to join us or rejoin, we will always welcome them and their expertise and their practice with open arms. In March and April this year, I did a virtual roadshow and I met with all except one branch and interest groups. And I want to acknowledge Rebecca Senyolo Mukhadi specifically, because Mukhadi was not only did she to make the arrangements, the contact and the liaison, but she was at every meeting. There were other EXCO members who joined us as well, and I thank them for their time. But specifically, Rebecca, you really have my back, and I appreciate that. Some of the key findings in discussion with each of the branches and interest groups, in many cases where the chairs had resigned and the chair-elects had stepped up, knowing that there's still another 2 years to go of their own time. It's not been a happy situation. I want to acknowledge everyone who has stepped into the gaps left for various reasons. I also recognize after 20, goodness, how many years? 24 years. Even in our branches and interest group executives, there remains a poor understanding of LIASA. And in certain instances, training is needed. We have PROs whom I see post on Facebook in their own areas of work. And I wonder to myself, why are they not posting for LIASA? Okay. What is it? There are other communities of practice that are growing up. What is it that LIASA is not doing? But I want to emphasize, colleagues, after my meeting with all of these people, that the heart and soul and commitment of library and information services practitioners, their heart and soul is intact when it comes to LIASA. I briefly want to speak about this because the next speaker will pick up on this, but I want to raise the reason why we're here, the restructuring. Point number one is, I've said, that the model that I presented and was approved by AGM 2019 in principle for branches and interest group restructuring, I'm not convinced anymore that it will work. And this conviction is underpinned by the outcome or the present status of the 2021-2023 elections, which I call a dilemma as well. I just want to repeat this model. I don't believe that LIASA is ready for it. This model, that's the branch and interest group model. The model that you're looking on at right now was the secretariat aspect of governance in LIASA, which colleagues AGM has approved. We must implement this. And I want to bring your attention to the purple dot right down there, the role of coordinators. And the question is there space in our discussion where we can change, where we can restructure the restructure model into something that works for all of us in LIASA? Because ultimately, colleagues, what we are looking at is for the betterment of LIASA in order for improvements and betterment of the profession in our country, continentally and globally. LIASA has a proud history. We need to build and add and enhance that history. Thank you very much. And before we have discussion, I don't know that I would ask that we don't have any questions right now, but that I pick up with questions after the next presentation, which might very well answer some of the questions raised here. Thank you, Program Director, and thank you everyone for your attention.
Thank you, President LIASA, the President of LIASA, Ms. Nikki Croster. Apparently, some wants to see my face. Sorry about that.
Well, it's a lovely face, so I'm not surprised.
Thank you for setting the scene. And I hope people, all members present today, will indeed coherently and comprehensively and anonymously contribute towards the betterment of our association. Indeed, let's walk this road together. Other than that, without you members, we are nothing. Without further ado, is
Rebecca,
going to
you've
give
muted,
us some insight. Okay.
Rebecca, you muted yourself when you said without further ado. So would you mind repeating that, please?
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. We have just experienced load shedding at the moment, and I'm using my cell phone. So when the calls comes, they interrupt. Sorry about that. I was introducing to you the next speaker, who is going to give us some insights, none other than Ms. Leila Bahat, our electoral officer. Over to you, Leila.
Thank you, Rebecca. And thank you, Madam President of LIASA. It's indeed an honor for you to have asked me to present today. I thought you'd have another lineup of speakers, and I wasn't expecting to come on so soon. But be that as it may, I want to share with you facts that that substantiate what Nikki is talking about when she speaks about the apathy. So I'm not going to look at previous elections. I'm just going to present from this year's election. So if I can have permission to share my screen.
You should be able to, Leila.
Yep, I'm trying now. Yep. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. Now, where am I going to start my... I can't find now where the button is to start my slideshow.
Leila, it is on now.
Go to the slide.
Go to the slideshow tab. It is on now.
Yeah, I can't find the tab because the buttons have been hidden.
But we are seeing your screen. I am seeing your screen.
Yes, but I need to get to the...
So Leila, where
Oh.
you see home, just continue to your right until you get to slideshow. Home, insert, design. Next one. Next one. Next one. Next
Yeah, I
one.
can't get to them because they're all hidden.
There, stop. Stop there.
There,
No,
right,
there you
okay.
go.
Sorry, they're all hidden behind the Zoom button there on my small screen. All right, as I said, I just want to present the facts of this year's election to perhaps remind everyone of where we sit, and we sit with this problem every 2 years when we do an election. Before I get into the facts of this year's figures, I just thought, just to help me along the way, I'd do a quick SAW analysis of the whole electoral process that LIASA currently has. Because I think we do have a good system in place. We can improve on it as we move into restructure, but perhaps we need to remember what we've got. So when we look at our strengths, we have strong election rules in place. We've put these rules into place over a number of years. The office bearers elections is controlled by our main constitution and rules. And although there isn't in the constitution and rules a formal process for branches and interest groups, we have put rules into place. And certainly the 2018 election and this year's election, we have abided by those rules. We have a good communication system in place when it comes to doing the election. I am assisted all the way by the LIASA office, and members cannot complain that they do not receive sufficient communication on the process of the elections, from calling for nominations, reminders about the call for nominations, several reminders via email, via WhatsApp, via social media, as well as via the LIASA website. When we do open the elections on the digital platform, there are also several reminders that go out on all of those platforms as well. So I think our communication strategy around elections is very good. The fact that we've moved into the digital arena of elections is also a plus in our favor because of the fact that we are so spread out all over the country. This year, we moved to a double digital strategy. So it's not just the election itself, the ballot itself that is digital, but we did the entire call for nominations on a digital platform using Google Forms. And again, I was supported by the office in getting this right. Now, why is this important? It's because we're not relying on the South African Post Office any longer to get you a ballot form, to get you a form to nominate a candidate. If we still did that, you would have to wait 3 years before you received something from the South African Post Office. And with it being now in digital forms and not on the way we did it in 2018 via email, is that we have a complete table generated by Google Forms to ensure that I didn't miss anyone's email that was sent directly to my inbox. So if I didn't see the email, it's fine, because when I go to Google Forms, I can see all of the forms that were submitted. When we look at the external factors of opportunities, I think when we move into the future, we need to look at a combination of appointed versus elected persons on any form of body. And I think that is embodied in this new type of structure that Nikki has proposed, that we have approved previously at AGM. We need to set criteria for portfolios. We don't have that at the moment. It's very left up in the air to say, okay, we're calling for nominations for a chairperson-elect, and you should be this and you should be that. But we need to set criteria that we can tick box. you need a degree, you need this, you need that, then you can be nominated for this portfolio or that portfolio. And I think that is very important, because on the way we do it right now, where it's completely voluntary, we can literally get a gardener nominated by one person to be president-elect. And if there are no other nominations, that gardener can become chair of LIASA, president of LIASA. I'm using a bad example by saying gardener, because I'd love a good gardener. I'd get some good tips, but you know what I mean. Maybe also we need to look at the format of rotating resignations so that we keep continuity on our top structure. At the moment, we only have the one position that moves from chair-elect for 2 years, and then president-elect for 2 years, and then into president for 2 years. I'm not sure that's enough for the continuity that we require. What are the aspirations we should have when it comes to elections? We need far more vibrancy in our electoral process. To get one candidate nominated for particularly office bearers in the main LIASA structure, you have one person nominated as chairperson-elect, as president-elect. And that person then carries the wonderful significance of having been duly elected to the position of president-elect and then becoming president of this big, important library association. And if we don't find that we've got more vibrancy by having more candidates stand up, by having more people say, I'd like to take on this task, and then get into canvassing for my vote. Right now, there's very little that is done by way of canvassing. We are, as South Africans, I think, shy to canvass our talents, and we need to do that. And I think having done all of that, taking care of the SO&A, we can move into a more credible structure that has far more accountability. So let's move into the 2021 to 2023 election. And this is for both executive committees, for branches and interest groups, as well as for office bearers. As I've said just now, we had a full electronic process that was used for the calls for nomination, as well as an electronic ballot that is in place. Moving on to the results. I can't give you the names, I'm just giving you the numbers. Where you do see names, those are because they exist in the system at the moment. There are 4 branches where there are no issues. In other words, I do at least have one nomination for all of the portfolios. So if you look at the Free State and you look at the Northwest, there are no problems there. The Free State has a current outgoing chair. The Northwest didn't have an outgoing chair, but we've received 2 nominations for that portfolio. Northern Cape, the outgoing chair we've got, and we've got an incoming chair who's chair-elect at the moment. The same with KwaZulu-Natal. We have nominations for all of the other portfolios, and there will be an election in KwaZulu-Natal, or there is an election in KwaZulu-Natal for chair-elect. Eastern Cape, there's no outgoing chair. There is a chair-elect who will become the incoming chair. These are now the incomplete branches, where there are 5. Incomplete meaning I do not have nominations for certain portfolios. Can you see my cursor on the screen, by the way? Someone can say yes or no.
Just wiggle
Yes,
it,
we can.
Leila.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Ah,
So then you need the second slide on incomplete is Gauteng South and Limpopo. and the Western Cape, which is a big, big surprise to me. The Western Cape, I remember, used to be one of the most vibrant branches, showing off to the rest of us within LIASA, getting accolades and winning the trophy for best branch. This is a big surprise to me. So that was complete branches, not 4, incomplete branches, 5. And then what I've called branches in trouble. In Mpumalanga, we have an outgoing chair, and we've received 1 nomination for PRO. There is no way we can continue with a branch where we have no chairperson and only a public relations officer. So let's move now to the interest groups in the same sort of format. One of the interest groups has no issues, that's healing.
Leila,
Although there's no, yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. There's a request from the floor. If we could just see Gauteng South again, please. Or is Gauteng South, what is the status of Gauteng South?
Anita? Oh, there it was there.
There you are, thank you. Tabi
Is
Singh?
there a question?
I don't know. Tabi Singh, is there a question?
Sorry. May I move on?
Yes, please,
Yes,
Leila.
please.
Okay, then I said, let's move into interest groups. And we were talking about healing, where although there's no outgoing chair, which is not a problem for the 2021 to 23 election, we do have a chair-elect who will become the incoming chair. And we're going to have, or we're having an election for the chair-elect, and we have nominations for the 3 other portfolios. Moving on to then the incomplete branch interest groups. There are 4, Igbis and Retig, where you can see we've got gaps. Now, the red flag gaps, of course, are where we have no chair-elect, and you saw that in some branches as well. So if you allow this interest group to continue as is, you have a chairperson, you have a secretary, treasurer, and PRO, but who takes over in the next term? Retig, you can see there's no treasurer, no PRO. Illig and Slicing, no secretary, no PRO here, no treasurer, no PRO there. In trouble interest groups, I think this speaks for itself. Listlig has an incoming chair, Itlig has absolutely nothing. And there are 5 interest groups that are in trouble. Maig and Paklig. Maig has an incoming chair, so does Paklig. 1 nomination for Paklig for secretary, no nominations for Maig for any of the other portfolios. SSIG, nothing. No chair-elect, nothing else. I hope the shock is setting in. When I sent it out as a table, I'm not sure that probably like me, many LIASA members read all of the communications, but I at least expected some feedback. But the apathy goes further than that. So this deals with the voting, which also shows a level of apathy. This was up to 10 a.m. today, so I was still doing this at the start of this Indaba. These are the 6 branches or interest groups where we currently have the ballots going on. This is the number of members in each of those groups and the percentage votes to date. Now you can be thrilled at the fact that Northwest has 40% of votes to date. Is somebody trying to say something?
No, it was a
Okay.
temporary drop of unmuting, but it's been fixed now, Leila. Please, if you would
Okay.
continue.
You may be sort of thrilled that Northwest has 40% of votes to date, but when you look at the number of members in the Northwest, it's not a big deal. And to say that we've got an average of about 30%, 35% of votes to date is not good. Because we've only got about 10 more voting days, if I can hazard a guess. The office bearers elections, I can't show you the same sort of table because nominations haven't closed. But if I can show you this graph, which says that up to this morning, today was the closing date. I took the step of extending the date during the week, and it now ends in a week's time. But if I closed nominations today, I have 3 responses, 3 complete responses for the portfolios, the 4 portfolios. In other words, I have 1 nomination for PRO, 1 nomination for treasurer, and 1 for president-elect. That is not good enough for an organization the size of LIASA. And if I stopped nominations today, we would go forward with no secretary. That is dire. And I think if this is not a sign that something needs to happen, that something needs to change, then nothing is. I put this in just to show you. It's a combination of apathy and why should I vote? I feel nobody is doing anything for me. Maybe I don't know that anyone's doing anything for me. So why should I nominate somebody? Is something wrong with our communication strategy? Is something wrong with only our structure? Or is it an all-round something's wrong? I feel, and I'm called the electrical officer sometimes, so I put some electrical signs in there. Unless we start thinking, as Nikki has laid out, some infrastructural changes, some operational changes, functional changes, we have to find our way to a new LIASA. And only through going through these sorts of changes can we get to a new LIASA. So although, Nikki, I feel, Madam President, that your entire proposal of the way you'd like to restructure may not be what we all want, but the fact that the basic structure has been approved, we should move very quickly into the basic structure and start building from there. We don't have to have all the puzzle pieces in place. Let's start with something and start building again. Only when we lay the foundation blocks can we then see, okay, we can add this and we can add this floor and we can add another floor and then we can add the roof. But let's start rebuilding. I'll stop there for now.
Thank you, Leila, for the insights. It really helps and it clarified most of our uncertainty, and it is indeed shocking of the graphs that we have just seen. And sitting here as a loyal and proud LIASA member, I don't feel proud. But you have added to what Nikki has said, that let's walk this road together. And you have just said as well, let's start rebuilding. So, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the scene has been set, the insight has been shared, and we have to work together. We have to start rebuilding the LIASA. I'm now going to open the floor for discussion while we have been listening, and I hope we will now contribute so that we move forward. Please don't forget to mute yourself when you're not talking, and only those that are given the platform to unmute when they talk. The floor is open for discussions, colleagues. And you can help me if I don't see the hand or something.
Program Director,
Yes,
I would
Nikki.
like to say something, please.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Leila. Leila is our electrical officer. But jokes aside, Leila has been the LIASA electoral officer and for several terms, and therefore has the oversight of how LIASA performs during elections. And you will notice, everyone, that we have not spoken about by-elections because by-elections do not work. By-elections do not substantively change the situation where there are vacant portfolios. I see the comments in the chat that this is shocking. And I'm glad that through the visual representation, we can talk until our faces are blue, but the visual representation of the trouble that we are in certainly is a wake-up call, as comments have indicated in the chat. In terms of way forward, colleagues, I want to just remind that we have the Secretariat that is in a restructuring mode, but there is no point in us restructuring the Secretariat if the Secretariat has nothing to feed into. So if our discussions today could be around what are the potential innovations and solutions to the branch and interest group restructuring. I am taking, because I can't do it until AGM agrees with me and gives me permission to do so. But I am taking off the table the previous model. As I've said before, I don't think that LIASA is yet ready for that. We need to, when we talk about rebuilding, we need to get our basic blocks in order again. Thank you, Program Director.
Thank you, LIASA President. Thank you, Ms. Krauster. We are now opening the floor for discussion. If I don't see your hand, you can start talking.
Good morning, Program Director.
Okay, I see Ms. Shelleen. Is that you?
Yes.
And then I see Leila's hand as well, and you'll follow after. Thanks. You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much for all the presentations and for producing this rather bleak scenario. And now I have a huge truck moving outside my office. So sorry if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
We can hear you. You can proceed.
Thank you. I wanted first to say that it is high time now that we move LIASA to another level, to a higher level, and leave behind all the difficulties we are experiencing. I am very supportive of a new structure change. And one of the critical things I do want clarification on, though, is that little purple block about clarity around the coordinators, and it probably has to do with the interest groups. So perhaps the clarity around the coordinators, but from my side, I also want to say that it is very high time that we start LIASA, CHELSA, all the other partnerships, start moving the partnerships to another level. We do recognize in CHELSA as well that we need to partner more strongly together to push perhaps the LIS agenda in South Africa, in Africa, and maybe make it more recognizable. We have tremendous value. There is many strengths in LIASA that we can harness, and I do think this is now the right time for us to move into another generation. I do want to say, though, that not only the pandemic has brought about a new net generation change, and perhaps a lot of the apathy comes from that change. And maybe we need to tap into that net generation kind of communication or strategy, whatever you may call it. But the other critical thing about membership is if it's not authoritarian or it's not driven by authority, for whatever levels of authority, then we have like a fading membership, only people that are really keen or interested, and that amounts to like a 2% of the entire sector. And that for me is very disturbing. We need to move together, we need to move collectively, and we need to do it in a swift way, as well as a very, coming from a lot of wisdom and authority. That's what I would like to see. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Shireen. Leila, you can.
Thank you, Program Director. I just caught in the chat, I think it was Shanita who said, membership renewal is a challenge, many have not renewed. Now, I think we're using the drop in membership as an excuse for the apathy, but we need to get into the discussion of what came first, the chicken or the egg. And to touch on what Charlene has just said, that maybe it's COVID that has put us in this position, and I don't think so. We started seeing this apathy over the last 10 or 15 years, and it is slowly getting worse. And I think what COVID has done, not just to LIASA, but to other organizations as well, is simply sped up what was happening. COVID just acted as a catalyst to speed up a train that was already going off the tracks. So if we're going to wait for membership numbers to pick up before we do something about change, we're not going to change. And I think change in itself is where we need to start, so that we can then start rebuilding and start pulling up membership numbers through the changes that we make. Thank you.
Thank you, our electoral officer. I see another hand, but before I could proceed, Madam President, with Shaline's comment, there was clarity seeking one that needed around the coordinators on the model. So I wonder if you could clarify that before we move on, or should I continue with the questions?
Certainly, Rebecca, just to note that Suki's hand has been up for a while, and then Sihle Blose, I think.
Thank you. Noted.
And I has a hand raised as well that I can see. In response to the question about the role of coordinators, Shalene, we didn't, back in 2017, when we did our first presentation to AGM, and in 2018, when we took various models to AGM, before the final model was approved, the administrative model, the secretariat model, was approved in 2019. The idea was at one stage to create regional hubs to divide the country, broadly speaking, into a few regions, logical geographical regions, and then each province, if you like, the branches model can stay in place, but that the administrative burden, which is one of the challenges in branches, I can talk for a very long time, I and past presidents on this call, and other people in executive committees, past executive committees, can talk a lot about the challenges with managing money in LIASA, the challenges with handovers and report and maintaining the organizational memory. Remains an administrative burden in branches from term to term. And the idea at the time was that there would be regional hubs which would take care of the financial aspects as well as of the administrative aspects, which would free the librarians, information services professionals in the various regions, also known, or sections known as branches, to focus on the professional aspect of work, outreach, engagement, and so on. But ultimately, it was decided then that if the communities of practice model would be successful, it would be self-driven. And then the administrative and financial management could take place in the secretariat, as well as then any logistical functions. And that is where coordinator functions were envisaged. I must emphasize it wasn't finalized. I hope that's clear enough, Shalene. Thanks.
Thank you, Nikki, and I hope it is clear indeed. Let's move on. Zuki, my apologies, I didn't see your hand. You first, and then Sitla will follow. Thank you.
Thank you, SG. Good morning, colleagues. Indeed, the situation that we are, it's not what we would desire. I think major problem is the commitment, me being part of those that are no longer maybe committed as before. But my response would be more on what the president raised on interest group, or I mean interest groups. My suggestion will be, while we are moving to the restructuring, maybe to reduce the interest groups. Now I know they're about 10 to 11, if I'm not mistaken, but now maybe we reduce to 3, 4 looking at sectoral. Then other interest groups will fall maybe within the functions. Also to keep coordinators, not that we go for elections for interest groups, so that we have coordinators, and then we may appoint task team for a period of maybe a year or 2, where there will be specific tasks or training or whatever that we want to achieve for the interest groups. Also, having served in a lot of committees, I also think that I'll say those that have served, we need to have a way of coaching new people to avail themselves, so that we avoid the recycling of those that are committed, because sometimes we are not committing or availing ourselves for re-election because you have served, maybe it's about 10 years that you are serving, and now you have other things that maybe in life you want to look for, but because there are no people coming forward, maybe we have failed to mentor and coach those that will come after us. Then we end up now recycling the same committee, one that was a chair now become PRO and everything. So I think, and moving forward, that's maybe what we need to focus to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zuki. Sitla, can you follow, please?
Thank you, colleagues, and good morning, everyone. I think for me, having listened to everything that has been presented, the 2 presentations, I think in between we forgot the basics. By the basics, I mean, we forgot the institutions that are driving LIASA. There is no emphasis within the institutions that librarians must be part of LIASA. There is no, like, say, compulsory requirements to ensure that people are members of LIASA, because the first and foremost biggest problem here is membership. If we have an active membership, we can change the structure and do everything. But for as long as we do not have an active membership, we would not move forward. So for me, I think as we restructure a way forward, we need to go back to the basic. By basic, I mean, let's focus on the institution themselves. You know, if for whatever, for example, university you work in, there has to be a certain amount of people that are part of LIASA. The institutions need to assist to make sure that people are part of LIASA. maybe by a form of funding or by a form of paying maybe 20% of the membership, and then the other, and then you as a member, you can pay the other part. So I'd like to propose that we go back to the basic, we look at where we went wrong before we move forward, because we'll move forward now without having diagnosis properly where the problem is. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sitle. Thank you very much. And I see the next hand is Michelle, and will be followed by Shanita.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I've been a member of LIASA for probably 5, 6, 7 years. I'm a bit of a lurker. I've never really participated. I think my main problem is that I don't really have an understanding of what an office bearer would need to be doing, how many hours you would have to devote to it, you know, what kind of activities you would be taking part in. So like when the nomination things roll around, it's like I don't really have an understanding of what those people are doing within LIASA. I think maybe if we could just have more information on what kind of activities we'd be doing and what would be expected of us, I think that would also be quite helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Shanita?
Thank you, Rebecca. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Madam President. Good morning, Madam Leila. Thank you very much. I think when we go back and we talk about LIASA membership, that is our bone of contention. And as Leila had mentioned earlier, we have this problem every 2 years. And we have to ask ourselves as professionals, what is the hindering factor in those professionals not wanting to pay their LIASA membership fees? What is it? Yes, we can understand that COVID did come along. A lot of us still carried on. We are grateful to all of us that are here. You know, we've overcome such a huge disaster, I would think. However, we still have our jobs. We have still been reporting. None of us have been impacted in a negative manner where our salaries were not paid to us. So why is it then that our membership fees are not a priority? Why is it that we are not taking the profession that we have worked in for so many years? Why is it that we are not making it a mandatory factor? Because as far as I have seen in so many instances, I am an advocate for membership. I do it all the time. But people don't have the respect for our profession. And it speaks volumes when we see the membership numbers. We are unable to actually nominate people because those whom you would think are paid up members are not. So that in itself is a huge drawback. That is why we end up having one person for the chair-elect, no other members. In KwaZulu-Natal in itself, the membership is absolutely ridiculously down. And in my very institution, having a huge number to the point where I can honestly say there's just 3 people in now that have renewed their membership, which is terribly sad. And we have to do something. We have to work on finding a way where we can make this membership absolutely mandatory. I understand the legal implications. I understand all of that. But every other institution where professionalism is there and they belong to institutions, those fees are mandatory. LIASA has to do something to get these people to realize that we do need this professional body. We do need this LIASA organization. So colleagues, if we look at our numbers that are attending this Indaba, there's 82 of us. Where are all the other professionals? This in itself is something we need to ask ourselves. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Michelle. Let's proceed to, I'm seeing Madiba, and then Zukisa will follow.
Thank you, colleagues, and thanks for the opportunity. I hope I'm just going to draw from the previous speakers. Sihle was right when he talked about the basics, and also Shanita and Zuki, I'm also going to draw from them. I remember as a kid coming from a home where my mother was a nurse. Every year, she would be asking me maybe to go to the nearest post office to pay for the annual fee because it's something that is mandatory as a nurse that we have to pay every year, that fee. I'm asking myself, why are we not doing the same with this profession and making it mandatory that members must pay? I know someone who's also studying in the field of health sciences where he's a student, but I'm paying for for the first time I was hearing about this HPCA. I'm already paying, but as a student, because it's going to the health field, is forced even at high school level, at university level, to start paying. When he enters the world of work, he will be forced to continue doing that. Why are we not then engaging the universities in terms of saying we want even any student who wants to enroll, it must be a part of the fees that the student is going to pay. When the student goes out of university to work wherever she's going to work, it must continue. And another thing that I've noticed, we haven't engaged your departments. Those, you've got a bigger departments like your arts and culture, your universities, where we can draw a lot of people from members. But have we engaged them in terms of asking them if or engage them about the importance of membership? Because what I've noticed also is that in institutions where the head of that library, for example, has got interest, it always goes, it always fits on to the members. I'll take an example. For example, my former boss, this Betsy Esther, who was very passionate, she's still very passionate about LIASA. Within a short period of time, everyone at university, because she insisted that everyone should be a member. We all became part of LIASA. The current one, the same with Jeanette now, is the member, passionate about LIASA. That trend is going on. But in some institutions that I know, once a head of the school of that institution who was passionate leaves and a new one comes without interest or also with a negative attitude, the membership will drop, not encouraging people to attend LIASA. So that is also another contributing factor. It depends on the head of that institution. If that head doesn't have interest, the people also will not have interest. But if they, like another example that Betsy introduced here at the University of Free State, every advert of if you want to be able to work here at the University of Free State, it's an inherent requirement that you must be a member of LIASA. No compromise. If you don't have it, you are not going to be shortlisted. Any post here at the University of Free State, if you are not an active member, you're not going to be a shortlisted. Why don't we use the same even with other institutions? Make it mandatory when you want to be to be employed in this field. When you advertise the posts, it must be an inherent requirement that you must be a member of LIASA with an ad showing that you were in 2021, showing that you must attach the 2021 certificate proving that you are a member. Another area that I just want to conclude is someone mentioned, Zuki, about maybe it's time we think about a lean and thin organization, a lean structure. I was like thinking, we have gotten students at university, we've got student learners at school, they've got library, school library. At university, you have an academic library. When they leave at school or at university in the afternoon, they go to a public library to do their job. Why can't we put those together and have them? Because there seems to be something that is common along those. Put those three portfolios and have one. We seem to be having all these different portfolios. We're talking about very few people that we have. Maybe it's time that we think about the areas where there's some interest, common interest, and say, let's put them together, public library, this is a school library, and an academic library. Why don't we club them together and come up with another structure? That is my part. The last one is about the technology. This pandemic has taught us something that I think is time that also we think about using maybe a hybrid model. For example, when it comes to the virtual conferences that we're going to have, is it not time maybe we think about it even beyond COVID and have this hybrid model? I don't know how many webinars I've attended since the start of the COVID, of this pandemic, because I'm able to do other things whilst I'm listening to what is going on, especially a webinar that I've got interest in. I'm able to open it up. I'm able to get even later stage a recording. Is it not time maybe we think about, for example, a virtual conference beyond COVID, because some people may not be having in some institutions money to pay for transport accommodation, but they may be able to pay for registration. So is it not maybe time we think hybrid beyond the pandemic? That is my last parting shot. Thank you.
Thank you, Madiba. I just want to point out that I do recognize and acknowledge the comments from the chat group, and I was going to touch base on some of them, but I see we've got a lined up of hands. We rather give those that have raised hands before, and then we'll go back to the chat. Zukisa, you were next. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca, and good morning to everyone. I'm having most of the things that I had in mind have been touched by the previous speakers. But what I think I still need to emphasize on is the membership strategies. If we can have new membership strategies, and those membership strategies will be able to be effective if we, as different institutions, make a good support to our people. Because we can have good strategies that can attract everyone. But if at the back of our institutions, we don't get support, those strategies will not work. Because what I've identified in the years being a member of LIASA, and with each and every passion that I can have, I've realized that as long as our institutions are not strongly supportive to their members, our membership will always be a challenge. And for that, it also means that even the communication strategies within LIASA must improve. You will find that people knows nothing about LIASA. No one is aware about LIASA. And the issue of having asked for to be a member of LIASA when you are looking for a job, to me is not fairly good. It can be good if our institutions are starting to recognize the importance of LIASA and also support its members to be able to be part of this association. But if those things to me are not yet worked at, I don't think we'll be able to make any progress as this LIASA. I think it's been years we have been part of this association, but we don't see improvement. And lastly, I want to go back to what one of the speakers have indicated. Good people, we really need to see young blood coming forward. Things are changing. And also there is this issue of technology that is impacting in each and every part of our lives. Let's attract new young blood to this association. And those people, for them to be part of the association, they still need the support of individual institutions. The higher bodies of our library, I've run out of good words. But what I want to say is that the highest governing bodies of e-libraries must look at this and must recognize LIASA and must have a good way of making sure that each and every institution is supporting LIASA. We don't want to support only those who are active. We don't want to support only those who are at top management. Let's support each and everyone who is in the library field and who is interested to be part of this association. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zikisa. I still have lined up of hands, if we can just be cognizant of the time, but we are doing well. Can I ask Pefa? My apologies, I can't pronounce your first name. Please follow.
Hello?
Pefa? Yes. Please go ahead.
Berenice, that's you.
Yes,
Unmute.
Berenice. Thank you. Thanks for pronouncing the name for me, Leila.
I suggest you move on to the next one. Maybe she's not at her computer anymore.
Okay, my former president, Naomi, please follow.
Hello, Mokadi and everyone. Good morning and thank you. You can hear me, right?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make a few comments, and most of them relate to what other people have already said. I think the first point is that I agree with what Leila said in terms of it is not only COVID that has caused this situation. It has been coming for a long period of time. We have seen an erosion over a couple of years of the membership, of the participation, and it has been clear for a while that the current structure was failing. Some of the reasons could be that it was too top-heavy, which other people have mentioned, and I would support the idea of course, a leaner and more streamlined association, which would make it easy to make decisions and to actually run the association efficiently. Then I think one of the problems we've seen over the years also, I have seen that in the time that I was president, was we do not have the support from employers or institutions. Is it because they don't see value for their staff to be members of LIASA? And if so, what do they want to see? How would they see value in their staff being members of the association? So we need to engage them, and I know this has been done over the years, or attempts have been made, but have we adequately collaborated and discussed and brainstormed to get the employers on board? Because I know that employer support has been the stumbling block for many members, not only to be a member, but to participate as a member of a committee, executive, even a branch or the interest group committee member. So those are questions we have to ask. And I want to link that also then to, we have to in general look at what do the professionals want? What do they themselves need from the association? We need to really listen. And we particularly have to engage with the new and younger generation. And that has been mentioned by some of the previous speakers. How do we reach them? There's been a shift. There are younger people on board who are used to a different way of working, who have different perspectives. And indeed, I'm not sure that LIASA is actually moving around in that space enough. Then, of course, the other point I wanted to make was around the loss of institutional knowledge. There hasn't been enough transfer of LIASA institutional knowledge of where it came from and how, of course, it is growing, and the fact that we now need to be reborn in a sense. So that's where I agree with what somebody else also said, that coaching, mentoring, training, not only in the LIS skills, but also in how to participate in your association, how to be part of it, how to contribute. I know somebody else said, I don't know what an executive or a branch committee member has to do. So those are some obvious gaps why people might not be making themselves available to be part of the association. So I think there's a lot of things that we need to consider when we look at how we're going to be taking action and making a new, leaner, more smooth association work for everybody. And then, of course, the whole sectoral representation, I think that's a very important conversation. And the current structure of interest groups have not been serving us in the last few years. So I would think that we need to have some sort of transitional arrangement to transition into perhaps the ideal model that we want the association to operate in. Yeah, I think those are some of my comments that I hope we can keep in mind when we continue with the discussion. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you, Naomi. Thank you very much. Berenice, I see your hand is still up. If you are available, could you kindly go ahead and speak?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Please go ahead. Berenice, you are muted.
Hello, can you
Yes,
hear me
go
now?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to slot in with the membership and the value of LIASA as a librarian, having been working now in the field for about 20 years. And I remember and I work at a private institution, Aldaba College. And the first thing my boss did was to introduce us to LIASA, and and told us it was um, important for us to join it, and we were even supposed to join our international association because we are affiliated to our church. It's an Adventist. Nevertheless, what I want to say about the thing is that um, the membership. I've seen how many times how LIASA have tried to accommodate us as members. They have a structure where you don't have to pay it immediately. I am in a point where our salaries were cut, our um thing they membership fees were taken away, and I just made a individual decision that I needed LIASA as to help me to make me, with all this, not having meeting with anybody, you still feel you belong to a organization, a professional organization, and the fact that you've done so many strides in making this a professional, where we must get professional status, because this is what I've been fighting for in our college. They don't see us uh, as a value in as part of the academic um, thing in our college, where the library is always not recognized. And I even fight where they want to put in unqualified people in directors positions. So for me, I feel that um, going into the professional status is actually a very good thing, because I can now fall on that and prevent our administration of appointing um, non-graduates into our positions. Those who know me know that I'm disabled, Nikki. And I actually was about to contact LIASA about the problem that I have. They wanted to actually not they couldn't find anything against me, so they wanted to force a medical boarding on me. But fortunately, the COVID came in. But I was thinking of even getting LIASA in to help with that fact, because so for me personally, I feel and I will always motivate people whoever I see any librarian. Just like I would motivate people to become librarians, I will continue motivating them to join LIASA. And if we can maybe keep the membership at that amount that we have now, um, you know, we I'm sure we can get more people. And yes, I know that a lot of us are going through um, financial difficulties. But if we value want people to see us as professionals, we need to value our professional status and our professional organization and give and play a vital role in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Berenice, for your contribution. The next one is Tini.
Thank you, Mukhadi. Good morning, colleagues. I want to expand on one of the previous speakers who mentioned respect for the profession, and also somebody else who said we need to start at the basics. Now, I believe that perhaps we must understand what is a profession. I think we do not always understand what is a profession and what does a professional do. We work in the community looking into the information needs of the communities that we serve. We are information service providers or information providers, but first of all, we are professionals. We need to understand what is a profession and what is professional conduct. And we also need to understand that a profession is an automatic or actually an authoritative or an independent body. Nobody can tell a profession what to do. So it is also not, for example, government to come and involve itself with a profession, as I know it has happened to another professional body. So we are autonomous in what we are doing. Secondly, I would also put the attention to it that when learners become at the point of deciding what profession or what job they want to do, in many cases, we at the library and information profession ends up with people who do not really want to be a true library or information professional. It was an option that becomes available after the very first one or the second one wasn't anymore available to people. So it has to do with the intrinsic motivation of people coming to the library and information profession. And lastly, I will also say that it has to do with criteria and competencies. If you studied to become a library and information professional and you start practicing, you become proud of what you are doing. Therefore, a proud professional would not be satisfied with comments like, oh, we need some staff, we can get somebody from the street to do the work. We are proud professionals. We know what it takes to come there or to be a good information professional. So it has to do with the proud that you have, and therefore also the respect you have for your profession. Thank you.
Thank you, Tini. Thank you very much for your contribution. Coco, you are next. Coco, are you still there? Unmute yourself. Okay. If she's still somewhere, can I allow Chandra? Oh,
Hello.
okay. You are. Continue, please.
Okay, good morning, colleagues. Thank you, SG. I think I'm going to touch all the things that other colleagues been touched. I joined LIASA for a long time, and I was under the leadership whereby there is a slogan: when there is a problem, when you bring the problem, also bring the solution, which is, it was from our past president, Ujah. I think the thing that of mentorship and coaching, it can work in our profession, because whenever you introduce or you invite someone, she will say, what is the LIASA doing? And sometimes us who are active in the profession, we failed to coach them, because during the time of leadership, there is no one next to you to be saying that when I'm not there, you will be there. Sometimes you think that if I'm the chair-elect of the association in the branch, it's automatically that I know and I'm active to do this, which is impossible. There are people who can be the chair-elect or can be in the position, but there is no one who mentor or coach them. So when it's not there, when you are not there, nothing is going to happen. Secondly, is this thing of employment to get to be a member. In order for you to get the position, you have to be a member. It's good, this thing, when we are saying it, but practically it's not happening, and it's rare. I think for me, when I look things, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, because the employment or the institution that we are employed to is the one that is the stumbling block. It's not something that we have to sugarcoat that. People, they don't join the association. They are not active to the profession because they lack the support from where you are. You even have to face using your resources in the position of the association because you don't want to fail. So if we think that we are going to say that let's be a member of the LIASA, I can be a member because I want to be the manager in the position for this particular year. And then 2021, 2022, no one is going to force me to be a member because I'm already employed and I am comfortable in the position. So I don't think that thing is going to work for me. Lastly, is this thing of conference. Honestly, colleagues, a conference is what makes the association to be active. We go to the conference, some of other people, they want to be getting the vibe. Now there is this COVID, there is online thing, there is no one who is seeing. If you are talking about the LIASA, they're saying that, I don't have the computer even now. I'm not connected to anything. I'm using my personal data. There is no internet in my work, so I have to join. So you think that for me to be in the LIASA online, what I'm going to gain, because I don't even have the time. I think, colleagues, let's look, if we are in level, the level of the COVID is dropping now. Let's try to look, even if we have 200 members in the conference, which means the first come, first registration is first come to come to the conference. Let's do even the minor conference to bring that vibe for the young people to be in the conference, because the online thing is not in other people, because they think that LIASA is about the conference. I'm not sure how it's going to happen, because there is introducing of online, but for me, conference, let's do, even if it's 150, even if it's 100, that gathering is going to work for us, because even the managers, they are attending, they are approving to go to out, but now no one, yes, I'd see no one is going to see each other, but it will bring something if we can look at least more, especially in the election year. Election year is what makes the young people to get the vibe of the conference. But now there is no conference. We are not going to see each other. You elect the people online. You don't even know these people. So what is making me to be active, to be joining, or to be in the position? I think that one will help me. Thank you, Sestri. Bye.
Thank you, Coco. Thank you for your contribution. Chandra, you are next.
Good morning, colleagues. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, thank you.
Thank you very much. Look, some of my points may be discussed by previous speakers, but I do some training within the organization where I work, and I'm always trying to get people to register with LIASA, and some of the points that have been brought out in these discussions is what I want to discuss this morning. One of which is that in the past, previous administrations of LIASA, there were many directors of institutions, representatives of public libraries, private libraries, academic directors on board. And LIASA was seen as a powerhouse, and people were attracted to the organization because they could see their bosses there. And these normally dull bosses became very effective, very attractive, because they were part of an organization and people could see that LIASA was moving somewhere, wherever that may have been, and that their boss was there, therefore it was okay for them to be there. These people are no longer, or they're there, but not as visible. I must also say that we have to engage with, especially in the public library sector, with provincial management bodies as well, and bring them on board. Perhaps a greater visibility of National Library, departments of arts and culture within which libraries fall. Then another point is that management within the various sectors, library management within the various sectors, are not members of LIASA. And if they are, then they don't show their support by being present at meetings or workshops. Oh yeah, I know about LIASA. There's a workshop today, yeah, I can't come. The excuses are there, but support means so much more than a verbal token. And I think that has to be discussed as well. The issue of CPD in the greater realm of our profession has to be looked at and needs to be pushed. People feel that once they have a particular degree, that's enough to carry on. And perhaps academic librarians see it differently, but there is a great deal of apathy in other sectors, and we need to acknowledge that. This is a point that has, the last point, that has been brought up time and again by staff, members of the public as well. I think LIASA needs to be far more vocal, and not just within the sector. It's not a criticism to say that people are not doing enough, but perhaps we need to look outside the box and emulate other sectors where they have become more, for want of a better word, where those sectors have become more unionized. Now, I'm not talking about us downing tools, but rather about reskilling ourselves and those who are soon going to replace us. It is very critical, guys, because where I come from, there are over 700 staff in the library, and I may need all my fingers and my toes to count how many members we have. But I assure you, I am not growing any more fingers and toes. And that low percentage speaks volumes to me. And perhaps we need to look at how other professional bodies and unions perform and work, and see if we cannot adopt or adapt some of those aspects to bring it into LIASA and make ourselves more visible, more attractive, and to show that we are functioning as a body. Because right now people are just not interested, and we have to re-motivate people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chandra. And thank you, colleagues, for all your contributions. So far, I don't see any hand. And moving on, we really appreciate all your contributions. And when we move on, they will be addressed under the summary and the way forward. But before I continue, I saw, my president, you had your hand up, but you withdrew. Perhaps you will cover that when you do the summary and the way forward.
Okay, Rebecca, Vic's hand is up, and then I want to do a bit of a summary, and Leila's hand is also up, and Muketsi, that's
yes.
I don't remember your first name. His name, her hand is also up. So I'm going to wait until those people are done before I speak. Thanks.
Thank you, Nikki. I think Muiketsi was up before, unless if you withdraw, then I will allow Vic. So Muiketsi, please go first, and then Vic will follow. Thanks.
Comrade Mokhadi, good day. Good day, colleagues. My name is John, membership 1344, a proud LIASA member, a vocal one for that matter. There's a lot that goes through my head, but I'll try to be as brief as possible. The two comrades before me, comrades Nongobo and Chiandra, I think, we are in the same boat. I'm not persuaded that asking for one to be a LIASA member before employment is good enough. People become members once employed. Or what if I plan not to go anywhere? Then it means I can no longer renew my membership. That's not good enough. We need to go far beyond that. I feel you, and I agree with you, comrades there. While it is a good thing to demand membership, we need to find strategies of continuing with that membership. It's not good enough to have it the year you're looking for a job. Once you get the job, it's no longer important. To the leadership, we live in an era where accountability of people who are in leadership positions is very paramount. I have some serious misgivings around how people we appoint to positions of power use that power. I can say a number of things, but I'll pause that there for now. My take is we need to have a serious relook into our operations. There's a definition, I just don't have it near me at this point in time, that talks to transformation, relook into all our operations, the way we do things, the way we relate to one another, our conferences, the way we structure them, the way we elect people into office. And I think we may need a conference which packs papers and we deal with us as a profession first. 4 years back, I tried to bring a paper I titled LIASA Conferences. Is it a rhetoric platform or a platform for change? The powers that be decided to give me the runaround, and I ended up not pursuing that paper. But my intention was, for instance, I wonder, I attend conferences, I'm sure those who know me knows that. I wonder, how do we take what we do at this year's conference into next year's conference? How do we review the success, the efficacy of the papers that we had? How do we allow people to have sleepless nights to put a paper together and come to conference, we give them 5 minutes to present it? I find that to be, to me, unacceptable. Conferences, again, despite I'm looking for the name of the lady who just departed. Who's that lady, by the way? Remind me, someone.
Claire Walker.
Claire. Yes, Claire. When we go to conferences, it's either Claire says this, it's Claire, it's a number, it's a few, 5 people or 6 people. What about the views of the rest of the membership? We don't seem to care what that membership thinks, but we complain about membership apathy. Why can't we go deep into why are members, why will a person fly to Cape Town and then becomes unhappy while he's in Cape Town and decides to go on a trip? There should be a reason. I can't fly to Cape Town to go to a conference, but I spend 2 days not attending. There should be a reason. People are not happy. People have got complaints. Lastly, I want to touch on governance issues. I personally served in a few boards where the fiduciary responsibility of board members is sacrosanct, is critical to none. But I see we don't hold each other accountable because we've got names, we've got big name people in our organizations. We've got so and so and so and so, where those people cannot be criticized, where if you criticize these people, you fear for your career path, you may apply for a position at UJ and then at the previous, it should not be like that. We should be professional enough to go beyond that. My issue on governance is, for instance, I was listening to Madam Laila there. You're doing an excellent job in terms of elections. I don't envy the job that you do. But sometimes just be careful of the power that you have and how you exercise that power. If you announce a closing date for nominations, I don't think you've got the powers to open the nomination. I don't think you have. And I've observed this to be happening a number of times where this is happening. And I don't think that is proper and ethical and sound leadership. It breeds suspicions into people's minds. And I think we need to do all in our powers to try and avoid it. In conclusion, what am I saying? I'm calling for a transformation conference where we relook into a piece of every part of our function as LIASA, be it conference, be how we elect people, be it how we nominate people, be it every little thing that we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Rebecca?
Yes, Nikki.
Rebecca, could you please remind this meeting that it's being conducted within the opportunity of free speech, but also respect for individuals. And when opinions are given, they should be indicated as just that. But attacks on persons is not going to be tolerated. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. I think the message has been clearly articulated to members. Please bear that in mind as we contribute towards LIASA restructuring. Thank you, Nikki. Vic, you were next on the line.
Thank you, Madam Program Director. I sit in a fairly unique position in this meeting because I am not a librarian. I'm actually a bookseller, but I'm also the chairperson for South African Booksellers Association for the National Libraries. And a couple of observations that I would like to make, and I'm puzzled first by the fact that you do not have people competing for office bearer positions. I would have imagined that within LIASA, and I've been in LIASA for a terribly, terribly long time, that people would compete for their positions within LIASA, and the office bearer positions that stand vacant, that Leila indicated to us earlier on, are quite a surprise. I would have thought that this, the prestige that goes with being an office bearer in LIASA is something that goes into one's CV. And I would imagine that that is also part of the professional development now that you have professional status. And I don't know that if it isn't maybe something that should be done or something that could be done whereby people in the positions can encourage those people that are members around them to actually look at taking those positions as office bearers within the interest groups and within LIASA. Because that is something that is really quite important to have in your CV. The prestige that goes with it, I think, is immeasurable. When I look at the people that I've the old guard, as I would call them, people like Leila and Naomi, Nikki, people that I've worked with for a very, very long time, and I have had huge admiration for them because they've actually worked so incredibly hard to get to where LIASA is now, and I think that it should be the younger people that now step up and say, we want to be like those people. And I think that to emulate those people would be quite admirable. The second point that I would like to make is Madiba had it 100% correct, that unless the management within libraries supports LIASA, it's unlikely that you'd get the junior librarians joining. And it would be a challenge by the people responsible for membership within LIASA to approach management and ask them, what are they doing to gain membership by encouraging the younger people within the library, the younger librarians within the library, to join LIASA? I think that would be a step in the right direction. But I also do believe that somewhere along the line, the people responsible for membership within LIASA need to make an approach to the employers to gain their support, because without that support, you're not going to gain too many people, too many new members from organizations that do not recognize the professional status of LIASA and encourage the people within that organization to join LIASA. Thank you.
Thank you, Vic. Thank you for your contribution. Indeed, just to reiterate that as much as we deliberate and contribute, let's respect one another. And bear in mind that whatever the association, the information that goes out there, whether be it from the electoral officer or any other person, it comes with the directive from the representative council, from the executive committee, and no individual just posed or information out there without the directive from LIASA Executive, LIASA Representative Council. Moving on with our the hands that we have. I think next is Leila. Thank you, Leila.
Thank you, Rebecca. I want to touch on some of the issues that have been raised by some of the speakers, and I think Nikki will pick up on others. Firstly, about the professional body status, and I'm not going to get into the how, whats, and wheres of professional body status that are SAQA controlled. I would ask that Nikki and or Naomi, because all of this started actually still when Naomi was president, continued under Ujala as president. There's a whole lot of rules and regulations as to why we have the type of professional body status we have and not the other type that, for example, the Health Professional Councils has. So I'll ask that Nikki or Naomi actually explains this in more detail in this meeting, because perhaps some members in this meeting may not have been following the threads of those conversations over the past 8 or 9 years. But with or without professional body status, what I want to talk about is personal value. I don't need my professional association to have any particular type of governmented status for me to feel that I want to be proud of the profession that I studied for and that I have worked in for all of my working life. I don't need any legal body to tell me that I have to belong to the professional body, because I belong to the professional body because I want to. There are some years that have gone by where I've done very little within LIASA, but I've still paid my membership fees because I pride myself on being a professional librarian and having pride in the fact that I do the best within the work that I do, even before I became a library director. I became a professional, a member of the association before it was LIASA, but I became a member of the professional association from the first year that I was employed. And I do it because I want to do it. And I don't know why other people who work alongside me in my profession don't want to do the same. I do not understand it, because this under 700 Rand will buy me 2 pairs of shoes in 1 year. And if I was a man, somebody else said the other day, a good pair of men's shoes actually costs more than 700 Rand. So for me to spend that 700 Rand per annum, which I can pay off in terms if I wanted to, because LIASA allows that, I pay it because I want the status of being a member of LIASA, whether it is regulated or not. I think Tini touched on this as well when she said that where's the personal pride? That moves straight on into this employer versus staff member issue that's being raised. Why don't employers make it compulsory for their employees to be LIASA members? I do. My adverts all say membership of LIASA is compulsory. But as other speakers have said, as soon as somebody gets the job, the year later or 2 or 3 years later, they just stop paying the fees, and there's nothing I can do about it because it is not by law that they have to be a member of LIASA. And it's not because LIASA doesn't want that. It's, as I referred earlier, it's about the SAQA regulations. And in labor law, if I had to threaten anyone on my staff to say, well, I'm going to terminate your services because you are no longer a member of LIASA, or I'm going to force you to pay your LIASA membership fees, I will be in labor court, slapped, imprisoned, or whatever. I cannot do it in terms of South African law. So while it's an ideal, we cannot do it, not because we don't want to, but because it's not legal to do so. Subsidized membership. And I think this is something where some organizations, in my opinion, spoilt their staff by either subsidizing or paying for personal LIASA membership in years gone by. And more over the years, the Auditor General has caught up with those organizations. There may still be some doing it, but the AG is catching up with them as well. In terms of the way budgets of organizations go, I have the right to use my budget to pay for institutional membership for my library. But I do not have the right to use public funds to pay for personal members. And this goes for all of those other professional organizations like the nurses, doctors, accountants, etc. Each person has to pay their own personal membership to the organization that they belong. And this is why we have lost members, is because some organizations paid for their staff to become members. And as I've said, as the AG has caught up with them, so they have had to drop that, and those members have now not wanted to pay it on their own. Somebody said employees don't want to pay because employees don't want to pay because they don't see a need. And I think I said that, and as Ingrid is saying right here, she joined in 1999, and yes, LIASA has made her the librarian she is today as well. And I can't say that more than Ingrid is saying it there. Nora is also saying LIASA has made her the librarian she is today. I have learned so much, not just by participation in LIASA, not just by being active, because there have been many years where I have done nothing professionally with LIASA, but I've still been a member. And a couple of people have talked about the physical conference. Guys, I think we need to appreciate that the current leadership of LIASA is not hosting the next conference remotely out of choice. Had they gone ahead, was this conference has now been organized for the last few months, when meetings of 250 were allowed, I think at that point when we started organizing. Had we gone and booked a venue then, we would be out of pocket now because we've gone back to 50 people in meetings again. We cannot afford to hold an in-person conference now, and it's not out of choice. It is the situation we find ourselves in with COVID. And believe me, if we had to do this without any care for the law and go ahead, if one person caught COVID badly and lost their life as a result of coming to a LIASA conference, none of us would forgive ourselves. That's just some of the stuff I want to say. There's been a lot said that I don't want to get into, but that's just some of the points I wanted to pick up on for now.
Thank you, Leila. Thank you for all your, always we tap on your insights, we tap on your knowledge and experience. Thank you very much. We had Maruping, but I don't see your hand anymore. I'm not sure if you would want to still comment or contribute. Maruping.
Hi, Chair. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to briefly talk about participation. That I see we over 80 members who are here attending the meeting. Let's challenge ourselves and avail ourselves for the positions of national office so that immediately after this meeting, Leila has enough people who are available for nominations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Maruping. Thank you for that encouragement. Colleagues, not unless I've missed something, but I don't see any further hands except that one of my president, which deliberately I'm picking it because she will be the next speaker after this. Any more hands that I may not be seeing? And Nikki will start with comments if there are any, and then I'm closing the discussions because I don't see any further hands. And before Nikki can do that, allow me to quickly check on the chat because there were, I'm sure you have seen a lot of them. The others have been responded to, but just to quickly check what could have been missed on the chat. Yeah, there are quite a number. I think I saw the other information from Shalene, which she suggested that there should be transformation on, we should transform interest groups to become sectoral task teams to drive the agenda rather aggressively to make a difference in our profession. And the other one that I saw was making membership compulsory so that fees can drop for all of us as a
Rebecca?
professional body. Yes, Nikki?
May I make a suggestion? Thank you for what you're doing, but
Yes.
there's been quite a few comments in the chats. And
Yes.
I've pulled some of them into my summary, and if necessary, colleagues can make further points because this is not a one-off conversation. We started this meeting because something has to happen, and we've got significant feedback from the floor, and undoubtedly there are people who would wish to make input in a different manner. Not everyone is comfortable speaking in a public forum or on video, etc. So may I suggest, in the interest of time, because I think there's more to talk about. If I could go ahead with a bit of a summary so that we leave this meeting with some kind of solution. Yeah?
Please do, Nikki.
Please, if
do.
you don't mind, I'd like to take the conversation forward. I want to thank each and every person today who's made a contribution, whether it be in the chat, whether it be in person, or whether it's still in your mind. You're welcome to email us. You can either email me directly at one of my addresses, which are nikki.krauster@gmail.com or at uct.ac.za, or to president@liasa.org.za, or to anyone else, to the SG, to Rebecca, Secretary. I'm not sure what your address is, Mohadi, your LIASA address, but nevertheless, colleagues, there are various,
I'll put it on the chat.
There are various ways of making input. But no matter how people have said it, I think there are some quintessential points that need to be noted. So let me see how far I can go. Oh, before I do that also, I want to recognize Betsy for the unfailing support of LIASA as an executive director. And I also know there might be other executive directors on the call besides Leila, whom I also want to recognize, and Ujala, who have supported LIASA membership for their staff. So to the persons that I know of and to everyone else who has done it, but I don't know if I want to acknowledge you for your ongoing support, unfailing and unstinting support for LIASA in this regard, because we're not doing it for LIASA ultimately, colleagues. We are doing it for the people that we serve. We have to be the best we can be in order to transmit the best services we can and change people's lives. We can have many debates about the failures of reading development in our country, of the economy in our country, etc. But if we can change one person's life, one child's life, provide shelter for one child to do their homework, libraries make a difference to society. Libraries, heart of the community, to me is the most apt SA Library Week slogan. I've ever heard. Right, so if I may, I'm not going to look at the chat, so I might miss a few things, but I want to just get moving on with this summary, please, if I may. This is what I see to be the key, the cogent points of this discussion. Can you see my screen checking?
Yes, Madam President.
Thank you very much. It's headline summary. So colleagues, I've just drawn from the conversation and categorized it broadly into internal and external. Internal being inside LIASA, external being exactly the opposite. There has been a call, a recommendation for a leaner, more streamlined organization. We haven't spoken about what that means in essence, but it might be related to what Leila, as the electrical officer, presented earlier in the day. Please forgive me. I was a member of the executive committee during Umandla's time, Mandan Ntombela, and he was the one who phrased Leila as the electrical officer, and it stayed with me since then. There has been call for mandatory membership, and we're running out of time now. Otherwise, I would have asked Anne-Marie to do a quick presentation. However, colleagues, the bottom line is that LIASA is a professional body, not a statutory body. Now, you do get professional bodies that are statutory bodies as well. Please remember that when you are a statutory body, because it is legislated, you are under the control of the government and regulated by the government. But the advantage of a statutory body is that it has regulatory powers. And that is why the Health Professionals Association has mandatory annual fees, membership fees. There are examples of professional bodies where people have to belong to the body without regulation. How many people do you know, or would you hire, if you had two people, you had two chartered accountants, and the one belonged to SACA, South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. And remember, SACA is a professional body, therefore accredited by SACWA. And you had a chartered accountant who wasn't a member of SACA, and they have equal competencies. Which one would you hire? And it is that weight of support that gets a professional body to manage and regulate its profession and the standards within its profession. And this is something that LIASA is light on. We do not have that support from employers. And that is another point that was raised and in the conversation and will be raised in the next slide. The importance of managing organizational knowledge transfer. I raised this as one of the findings in my virtual roadshow that I did this year. But it's common knowledge that many people, even comments made in discussion today, show a sore lack of understanding of the Constitution and the rights of officers and the requirements of officers as well. And to the person who spoke about holding LIASA officers accountable, we agree fully with that. The need for space for emerging LIS professionals and the next wave of leaders, mentorship and coaching. I've gathered all of those together. Vic, I love the way you call me part of the old guard, but I do understand why. We met back in 1995 when possibly some of the people on this call might not have been born or were very young. But in this regard, at present, we are working on the LIASA student chapter, so that once you enter university, you start becoming involved in LIASA and then subsequently throughout your professional life. The LIASA Academy is in place in order to facilitate mentorship, coaching, maintaining standards. Somebody asked, why not speak to the employers and see what it is that they want if they will support LIASA? That is exactly the role of the academy, to speak to the employers and say, what is it that you think we're not doing properly and how can we fix this in terms of learning, teaching, coaching? Colleagues, there are two very important points left over. And one of them was raised by Mandla Ngubeni in the chat, right, about motivation. Even if we force people to become LIASA members through a mandatory requirement, they might very well still not be motivated, and the apathy that Leila raised earlier will remain in place, and we wouldn't have moved on from where we are. We would have a better income stream, but we would not have a vibrant, dynamic organization or a more vibrant organization. And then personal value and commitment to LIASA. During my term, I've received many threats from persons in the profession, and I literally mean threats. If you don't do this, if you don't give us free membership, you will see what happens. That's exactly what somebody said to me. We are tired and you will see what happens. Now, what I find interesting is that the people who are writing these letters are not LIASA members. So what is it that they're going to do? Remain non-LIASA members. I come from the 1980s. I grew up during the apartheid struggle, where the slogan was no normal sports in an abnormal society. Yeah? So there was a different train of thought that you could only make a change if you participate, right? So there were alternative sports codes that were created to offset the apartheid era. So my point to you, colleagues, is people cannot stand on the sidelines and criticize LIASA. Get in and get your hands dirty. Make that commitment. I understand financially that things are tight. But when we start comparing 650 Rand to a pair of Levi jeans or a meal at the Spur these days, we have to ask, what is it that our values indicate when we complain about 650 Rand? My line manager spent a good few thousand rands in order for a professional to belong to another professional body, not to LIASA. Right, so those are the broad points that I made about internal. It does not address how we're going to move forward, and we must, by 1 o'clock, please, colleagues, address a way forward. I think the key here lies in 2 bullet points. Number 1 is a leaner, more streamlined organization. And I don't know if I left it off yeah, I did. I unintentionally left off the point that Shalene made about, oh no, it is there. Bullet number 3, moving interest groups to sectoral groups, right? Because that in itself aligns with the previous model of grouping people together who have a professional interest. Right, next slide. External. The theme of this presidency is about collaboration and partnerships. And we have engaged with various parties, and we will, until the very last day of the term, continue to engage and collaborate. The point was made in this meeting that there needs to be more outreach for employers, and that point is noted. The need for employer buy-in is related to that, but the advocacy from internally from LIASA must be stepped up. I take that on the chin. I acknowledge that. I have spoken before about the notion of a statutory body versus a professional body. Colleagues, I want to say again, the decision to become LIASA to become a professional body is the right one. LIASA took a stance at NCLIS, the National Council for LIS, and said, LIASA will support NCLIS in the rewriting of the legislation around NCLIS as the statutory body, because the NCLIS Act said NCLIS is an advisory body. An advisory body doesn't have any teeth. It needs regulatory status. And LIASA said, we will support NCLIS provided that LIASA becomes the regulatory arm of NCLIS. We have the infrastructure to do that. And I will say this up front, NCLIS, like many other organizations, has not been as active as it would have been in the non-COVID times. We are having trouble communicating with SAQA at present as well. So while COVID might not, Leila and Naomi, be the core reasons, it certainly is a detracting factor. I'd like to round off the summary by asking, colleagues, what is the practical way forward to the dilemma, membership dilemma and elections dilemma that were presented to you at the start of this meeting? Thank you, Program Director.
Thank you, Ms. President. Indeed, you have given the question at the end there as a way forward. And as we move on, I would like to also invite Leila to come back and also give briefing on the discussions. Thank you. Leila?
Thanks, Program Director. I had a proposal in mind to try and save the situation with regard to branch and interest group elections. So if you'll allow me to share my screen again. And that's where I stopped previously. And just, well, it's one slide before I stopped, just to reiterate exactly what Nikki is saying, that these are the type of top level structure changes we need, but lower down at what we now call branches and interest groups still needs more thinking. So how do we save the situation for the 2021 term to the 2023 term while we work through the restructuring process? One of the ways, and this is within the Constitution and rules, is that we can immediately dissolve those branches and interest groups that have incomplete structures. So where we haven't managed to fill all the portfolios, means it's an incomplete structure, we can go to AGM and look at the rule number or the clause number that says we ask to dissolve these branches because they are now ineffective or interest groups. That is a possibility. We can do that. But I am suggesting that we find another solution, because I don't think at the moment, while we go through restructuring, that we want to take the drastic step of dissolving branches and interest groups for now. I say, let's find another solution. So I have a proposal in mind that is the next, that does offer another solution. And this is, can you see my screen, or is it looking a bit odd to you?
I can see your screen, Leila.
Okay.
It's readable.
All right. So this is the proposed resolution for branch and interest group executive committees. And the preambles reads, branches and interest groups of LIASA are established in terms of the Constitution Articles 14.2 and 15.3 respectively, and subsequently in Rules 8 and 9 respectively. Within these rules, it is determined that a branch shall elect a branch committee consisting of a chairperson-elect, a secretary, a treasurer, and other members to manage its affairs. And exactly the same is stipulated for an interest group. The Constitution is silent on the methods that shall be used to elect such executive committees, but the Representative Council has in recent years adopted the methodology of a formal method calling for nominations followed by ballots where necessary. The Constitution and rules are silent on the eventuality of not having full executive committees. But de facto, some branches and interest groups have been operating without full committees in place. The call for nominations for executive portfolios for branches and interest groups has not been effective in finding candidates for all portfolios. This proposal is an endeavor to make good on what could be a disastrous situation for some branches and interest groups for the 2021 to 2023 term. This resolution must be seen in the light of the fact that LIASA is in the midst of considering a restructuring, restructuring its governance, and is therefore an interim solution. So the proposal itself is for the 2021 to 2023 term of office. Branches and interest groups that have successfully filled at least the following portfolios shall not be impacted by this proposal. And those portfolios are chairperson, chair-elect, and secretary. Vacant portfolios for treasurer and or PRO shall remain vacant if these have not been filled. Branches and interest groups that have not been able to appoint at least a chairperson, chair-elect, and secretary, but have elected candidates for some of these and or other portfolios, shall have the right to change the portfolios of the elected candidates to firstly fill the portfolios in the hierarchy of chairperson, followed by chair-elect, followed by secretary. This shall be an internal decision of the relevant branch or interest group in a meeting chaired by the electoral officer. Vacant portfolios for the treasurer and or PRO shall remain vacant if these cannot be filled with existing elected candidates. Branches and interest groups that do not have sufficient elected candidates to appoint at least a chairperson, chair-elect, and secretary shall continue to the best of their ability with the candidates that they have, ensuring that the hierarchy above is adhered to. Branches and interest groups that do not have candidates for any portfolios shall be held in abeyance for the 2021 to 2023 term. So I hope that is understood. I'm not sure if anyone wants any clarity on the resolution.
Leila, this is Nikki speaking.
Yes.
I'm going to ask what I suspect other people on this call might ask as well.
Yes.
Give us a practical example of what we are proposing. If you could, please. Let's take
Can I go back to the slides?
Certainly, please.
Maybe this summary slide. No, sorry, not that. Okay, let me look at this slide, okay? Oh, sorry, my keyboard is very sensitive. Which one was it? No. Okay, let's look at slicing. We currently have a nomination for chairperson, a nomination for chair-elect, and a nomination for secretary. So these three portfolios enable this interest group to operate. What I am suggesting is that if there's no treasurer and no PRO, that is fine. Those portfolios are not essential to the operation of the interest group. A chair-elect, and a secretary can certainly take on the roles and responsibilities of the treasurer, because much of that is handled centrally by LIASA anyway. And public relations and marketing happens very centrally as well. And chairpersons and chair-elects and secretaries can certainly look at marketing their own branches and or interest groups. So I'm saying for something like slicing, these top three positions are there, they are elected and they can operate. But let's take, when you look at ILEG, where there is an incoming chair, there is a nomination who will be duly elected as chair-elect. There's no secretary, but there is a treasurer. What the proposal says is, let this branch decide if this treasurer is willing, can they accept the position of secretary, because the hierarchy of needing a chair-elect, and a secretary is more important to the operation of the group or branch. So although this person is duly elected as treasurer, let us sit down. Obviously, if this person is willing to say, let's take you out of the treasurer position and make you the secretary, because we want the interest group to be functional. Does that make it more understandable? Nikki?
Sorry, just unmuting. Yes, it will, Leila. Now, what about Meg? If we can use Meg as an example, please.
All right.
I know my program director won't mind.
MEG or SSIG? Can we look at SSIG first?
Yes, absolutely, because there's
Okay.
nobody once the chair.
There's nobody. Once the current chair is not part of the 2021, that's an in trouble interest group. There's no chairperson, there's no chair-elect, no secretary, no treasurer, no PRO. We could take this to AGM and say, let's dissolve this interest group. But what I'm saying for now, let's just hold it as an interest group in abeyance. In other words, for the 2021 to 2023 term, there just isn't any SSIG, but we haven't formally dissolved the group.
So Leila, before you step off there, now these are the a special group of persons in LIASA, and over the years historically have been active. How do we take care of the persons in this category if we're putting the SSIG interest group into abeyance?
Can I answer that question at the end?
Okay,
after I deal with the other example, because it applies to branches as well.
Certainly.
Okay, you want to look particularly at something like MEG.
Yes, please, because there's only one person. Once the current chair is
PACLIG as well. There's two. There's
okay,
one in.
Go for it.
There's one in MEG. There's two in PACLIG. So the outgoing chairs move out. There's an incoming chair here, and there's no other committee. I'm saying the incoming chair remains in that position as chairperson of MEG and does his or her best to run the operations of MEG by making sure that existing MEG members receive communications, etc. It doesn't operate as a full branch, but the person there is still responsible for ensuring that people who've chosen to be in this interest group start talking to revive the branch, or maybe for the future, making the decision to say, maybe this interest group or branch doesn't need to exist anymore. But for 2021, there is an incoming chair, and that person then handles the branch or interest group business.
Leila, if I may ask you to pause for a second. Sorry, Rebecca, I don't mean to be doing your job. There's a question from Ingrid in the chat, which you would not have seen. Can there be some co-opting perhaps in MEG or PACLIG? And my answer, if I understand your proposal, not your proposal, but understand the proper governance of LIASA, is no, we cannot have, we've closed the date for nominations. It was extended. And it was closed now, and we're in the voting phase. So we can't co-opt people yet. What are your thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, I'm against co-opting formally into these portfolios. But obviously, an incoming chair here may need some help, and there may be people who are not even on the voters' roll then, who are willing to step up to the plate to say, let's get discussions going about the work of this interest group, because we do want to see it revived. Or maybe not as an interest group in the new structure, but we want to see the activities of MEG, re-engineered, the bulb must come on again. So the incoming chair has the right to start pulling other people into co-opted, not official committee positions, but discussion groups. I'd rather call them communities of practice discussion groups.
Absolutely.
And the same here with PACLIG. With PACLIG, if the secretary here, because I talk about a hierarchy, we need to fill this position, chair-elect, before we fill secretary. If the secretary is willing to take on the position of chair-elect, then at least the incoming chair has a chair-elect and can start doing the same as would happen here.
Thanks, Leila. Colleagues, Rebecca says, unfortunately, 2 more nominations after the closing date for Meg. I'm sorry, we struggled with this, Rebecca. We had many conversations with Leila. Rules is rules, so to speak. And if we don't adhere to the rules of the Constitution, then the accusations that we are power hungry will certainly be true. So, it's unfortunate, yeah. Colleagues, Rebecca, please could you call for discussion from the floor? I'm going to be quiet now, thanks.
Thank you, Nikki. You were doing well anyway, and I was so relaxed.
Thank you, Leila.
Thank you, Leila. Thank you for clearing up some of the issues. Colleagues, we've got few minutes that we can discuss further about the summary that we have just received. Any further inputs, any comments? You are welcome.
Leila, show that slide again, please.
I don't know what happened to, oh, there's it. Okay, yeah, I came back.
You need to probably reshare because we can't see
Okay,
it.
sorry, I'll try that again. The gremlins are operating. There you are. Oh, you want the last one again?
Yeah, I want the one with no action, no happening.
Yeah.
While they are sharing, I've got a hand. Can I go ahead? Or
Please
you
go
want
ahead.
To? Yes, Charlie, please, let's hear from you. Mr. Mulepo.
Yes, good morning, colleagues. I would second. I'm not sure if I'm seconding or I'm proposing. I would second Leila's suggestion because it's more like it's building. Because as Rebecca was commenting now, there could be people who will be willing to assist those structures that are in abeyance. I think what would be important for the incoming office bearers is to try and make sure that those committee of practice where there is no leadership, they try and support them so that there is effort that those structures, at least there's engagement to try and make sure that those interest group or committee of practice groups are active. That would be my proposal. That I think it's much more favorable because I'm also worried about the support SS group, interest group. It was one of our strongest group in LIASA in terms of being active, and it would be a sad story if that group can cease to exist. So in short, I'm supporting the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Chadi. Thank you very much. Nikki, did you want to comment on the slide? Otherwise, I've got another hand.
No, not at all. I'm very interested in the comments that are going on.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Sita, you are next, please. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Greetings to the President, greetings to you, Chair, and to you, Leila, and colleagues. I think what actually affected us in terms of the voices' role is the period or the time frame because of COVID and everything that's been going on. So people were not back at work on time. Some libraries have not fully opened. So they haven't got to worry about things like the professional body and how things are going. It might have to happen like last year where we had to postpone elections, go ahead with the current leadership that we have if things are like this, rather than to have to continue where other structures or where other bodies will not be in place. But if you're gonna look at the closing dates for nominations, we might find that people have made payments, but it's just that it was beyond the date that was proposed. That if you paid your membership payment in full by such dates, you'll be liable in a voter's roll. If maybe that can be adjusted as well. I'm sure there's a lot of people who have taken membership now. That can accommodate a lot of people, and then we can have a fully support in terms of restructuring and having every body on board and every structure on board. Thanks.
Leila, if sorry, Rebecca, if I might respond, please.
Yes, go ahead, Nikki.
The date set, the closing of the voters' roll, as indicated in all the correspondence sent out, is a constitutional obligation. We have no power to change that. The only way it will be changed would be at AGM via a representative council proposition. All efforts were made to ensure that people understand that they must be on the voters' roll by midnight on 31 May. And it's unfortunate. I see now many payments are coming in and membership renewals, but our hands are tied in that regard. I think that the proposal that Leila is making as an interim solution is one that is valuable because, number one, it's a wake-up call for all of us. For us in the executive committee, we thought that we were doing a good job in terms of the expansiveness of the information around the importance of membership and the membership campaigns in relation to voting. And yet we still have people saying we don't understand or we missed the date. Yeah? So there's work that there's always improvement there. But as I said in my summary as well, it's a give-give situation. And we need our members and the interested parties to come to the party in the time set, because those timelines are not set by ourselves. They are drawn from the Constitution. And just on a note as well, the dates that Leila sets out, or the electoral officer sets out, are dates in the Constitution. And I think it's rules 9.2 to Boho, but be that as it may, those dates are there for each person to see for themselves. It's like today. Today is when we send out the notice of the AGM as required by the Constitution. So colleagues, please remember that we're working within a Constitution, and the only way we can change this is via RIPCO and other ways to propose constitutional changes 2 months before the AGM. Thanks very much, Rebecca.
Please, may I add to that, Madam President?
Please go ahead, Leila.
Thank you, Rebecca. Nikki, you're absolutely right. I want to support you on the fact that some of these dates, most of these dates, are set in stone, and this was discussed with EXCO when I was appointed as electoral officer, and I set the dates out. And I showed you where there are dates that are controlled by the Constitution that nobody can change without going to constitutional changes, which requires you to go to an AGM or a special general meeting. There are other dates, as for example, for the branches and interest groups, where as electoral officer, I do have the right to play with those dates because they're not constitutional dates. And in those cases, I have been able to exercise together with referring and taking you to EXCO and Rep Council, as Rebecca had said, where we managed to change some dates that are not in the main constitution and rules. I just wanted to cover you by saying that because the previous speaker has said I willy-nilly changed some dates and I don't have the right to do that. There are some flexible dates and there are some inflexible dates.
Yeah, that's also why I raised it, Leila, is for the sake of clarity. This is the lack of organizational knowledge that we have been speaking about as well. And in fact, when every new term starts, the office bearers get a file with a copy of the Constitution and the rules, amongst others, in it. And perhaps we should send this out regularly to the membership as well.
On the website?
For sure. I've seen, Rebecca, I've seen several comments come in the chat around support. Might we hear, please, Program Director, from persons who are opposed to this, people who have a different view or perhaps a different proposal?
Yes, definitely. most of the comments coming were supporting the proposal. So do we have any counter to the proposal? Please let us know. Raise your hand or put it on the chat before we wrap up. I take it for now we would have seen something like that, but given the support and of the proposal, it looks to me that we may not have any, and so far I don't hear any counter. Thank you very much, colleagues. Before I really close, my president, my electoral officer, I just want to give you 2 seconds to say something finally before I close the meeting. I'll start with Leila.
Madam
If there is
Convener, I
anything
see
that you
2
want to
other
say.
hands. Do you not want to take those 2 hands?
Oh,
There's
are there 2
Teresa and there's
hands?
Ujala.
Oh, I couldn't see them. Sorry, I couldn't see that. Teresa, I believe your hand is up. Just few seconds that are left. Please go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I think I might be taking us back, but I'll just say it very quickly. I think the suggestion from Leila is a really good one, but I think we mustn't forget about the role that is played by our employers in this whole structure as well, and the time they give us to actually belong to these interest groups. So I just wanted to bring that up, because when I started in LIASA, the school library interest group wasn't going well at all. But because my employer told us we have to go and make sure it's up and running, that's how it got going again. So you have years where the interest group will go up and then it will go down, and it all depends on who is there and who the employers are, and how much of a champion you have running the interest group.
Thank you, Therese. My former president, Ujala, I believe your hand is up as well. Please step in.
Thank you, Rebecca, but I believe that we are fast running out of time, so I wouldn't want to use up the time for decision making on the proposal that's on the table. So please, I retract my
Ujala, are you done? You were kind of further away from the mic. If you are closer, we couldn't really hear you.
No, I said that we have very limited time to make a decision, and so I lowered my hand. Thank you.
Oh, okay. But you are welcome to still send those comments. We value them through to the emails and so on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then one last word from you, Leila.
Madam Convener, I've really got nothing more to say, just to thank you and the EXCO for giving me the support that you have given me, and for placing your faith in me, and that I do it to the best of my ability and try to remain as neutral as possible with doing this task. And just to assure people that when I extend a date, it's not because I'm looking at candidates. For example, at the moment where I sit, and I showed you that graph of 3 nominations thus far in the office bearers elections, I have not looked at the spreadsheet to know who those candidates are. I have no idea who they are. I just looked at the fact that we've got 3 and we need more. And I can just assure members of my neutrality in that all of the time. So it may be you, Rebecca, who's one of those candidates. I don't know. So I do the best I can to just make sure that processes follow. And I can assure all members of my neutrality in that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leila. Nikki, just 2 seconds from you as well before I close.
Rebecca, how do you know me? 2 seconds is impossible.
That's why I'm trying.
But I will be brief. Colleagues, thank you very much, sincerely, for the input of each and every one today. As Naomi says now, we have had very useful comments, many of which underpin or repeat the questions, the problems that we've tabled. But as Zuki said, which I'll always say, don't come with a problem without a solution. We already are proposing a solution here, colleagues. And immediately after this meeting, I have asked REPCO to stay behind and let us talk about this proposal so that we are within the boundaries of the regulations relating to governance. That's another strong message we've been sending today, that we fully adhere to the Constitution. But we should not be bogged down by the shortcomings in the Constitution. It is our responsibility as LIS workers and as LIASA members to be dynamic and to be visionary, to be brave and to be bold and to be courageous. And I note with great delight from the floor the many messages of support for the proposal. And to Leila, you know that I've said to you, you are not allowed to retire, and I will bring a presidential what's the word? A presidential
decree.
That's the word. A presidential decree signed by the first president right up to me and the incoming president that you will not be allowed to leave without, Leila, the transfer of your extensive knowledge. But what is also important is the independent thinking, the integrity, and the deep understanding of the Constitution. And so we look at you as part of the mentorship and coaching program that we've been discussing today. Colleagues, as at the last, even though it should have been done first, my apologies for that. Please may I note the meeting note number 1, an apology from our president-elect who is not well. And we send him our best wishes, our prayers for speedy recovery, as well as with a warning for him to rest, because he's going to need all his strength in the coming months as he takes up his presidency in just a few weeks. And the second apology I have, along with best wishes, is from Elizabeth Robertson, who apologizes that she can't join us and wished us all well in our deliberations. And I think that her sentiments have been well received given the success of today's conversations. Colleagues, we will continue to talk, because there's one thing you know about this term is we talk to people all the time. In our run-up to the AGM, which is exactly 2 months away now, and in which time, very exciting times, you will have a new president. So thank you for your time. Thank you for making the time, and thank you for your attention. And to my program director, my secretary general, thank you very much, Rebecca.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you. Okay, let me just put my camera now. You have covered some of the points that I was going to cover, especially the very sincere thanks to our electoral officer, Ms. Leila Bahad, for feeding us with the insights and the proposed resolution. And Nikki has already, taken all the wonderful ways to thank you, and we cannot thank you enough. And thanks, my president, Nikki, for setting up the scene and for the summary, and that allowed us to have a way forward. Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone who have made it to this meeting. I think you agree with me that we really have a fruitful meeting, and we are taking all your inputs into consideration. Thank you for all you, those who have managed to participate and contribute. Your invaluable contributions is making LIASA who it is today. And in particular, for the valuable time that you have taken from your busy schedule and from your employer's time, we really thank you so much, and we can't thank you enough. But most importantly, let's stand up as proud professional librarians, as LIASA members, and be counted. My president, Nikki Kroster, said, let us walk this road together. My electoral officer, Leila, said that, let's find our way to a new LIASA. So I'm saying the presidential theme covers all of this: collaboration and partnership. And together we can make it, we can make this happen. Thank you for all your attention and for allowing me to run or facilitate this program. Thank you, and have a blessed day, everyone, and goodbye.
Rebecca, just ask Repco to stay behind, please.
Yes, all the members of Representative Council, I'm not saying goodbye to you. I'm saying goodbye to the rest of our LIASA members. you are to stay behind because the meeting kickstarts right away. Please stay behind. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rebecca. Leila, can you stay behind as well, please?
Yes, sure. I was actually just asking you that in a text. I will stay on.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you for your time and your contributions.
Bye-bye. Thank you,
Bye-bye,
bye.
colleagues.
I must say it was really great to see more than 80 people in this Indaba.
It was